Pattern is a French seam design. All of your seams are inside. There's no raw edges. You have 2 pillowcases with the cuffs on each side and with the directional fabric. If this is your first time here, I would love for you to subscribe because this channel is all about creativity and inspiration. I hope you feel inspired to create something amazing. Feel free to share the inspiration because life is a journey we make together. Thank you. Thank you for the kisses. So I just picked up the quilt from Cosmic Quilting. Turned out just great. And now I'm on to making pillowcases. But all of the patterns I found online for the pillowcases didn't include a directional pattern. So I definitely want the cuff to be this way, definitely want the fabric to lay out this way for my pillowcases. So let me show you how I'm going to do it. So with your standard sewing pieces, you will need a ruler, your cutting mats, a rotary cutter, pens, your scissors, an iron, an ironing board. So to make 2 pillowcases with a directional pattern, you're going to need 2.5 yards. If you're only doing 1, you need 1.25 yards of the main fabric, and if you're doing a directional cuff, you'll need, for 2 pillowcases, 1.25 yards will be just fine. You'll need 2 pieces. I made my trim 2 inches by 41 inches, and that can be any trim that you'd like. Takes a little bit more fabric, but it's well worth it. They're just so cute. So this is how I did it. Always press your fabric before you cut it. It's just a good practice to get into. And this is the way I want the fabric to be on the bed. So what you do is, on the salvage side, with a directional fabric, I am going to cut it 41 inches. So I'm going to fold my fabric over, just like the pillowcase, how it's going to look. And what I'm going to do is line up the bottom and cut 27 inches this way. Now my cuff is also directional, so I have to buy enough fabric for the entire length, the salvage edge of my fabric. So you end up buying 1.25 yards of each of your fabric for directional. So I'm going to take off the salvage. I'm going to cut my cuff 10 inches. And if you're doing 2 pillowcases, you might as well do both cuffs at the same time. You're going to cut your trim 2 inches. You can also do it 3. So I left the salvage on this side so that I know that I'm going to be working with the cuff on this side. So, but now I am going to remove the salvage. I'm going to fold my trim in half and iron it down. Since I'm going to be working on 2 pillowcases, I'm just going to do both trims same time. So I'm going to take the ends off of my cuff. So I'm going to match my trim to my main fabric. Now, if your cuff has a direction, you want to make sure that it's going the same direction that you want it to be. So, right sides together, match it up, and pin it. So on this step, you want your pins to go the length of your fabric. I'll show you why. And I'm going to go ahead and cut off my little tail that's overlapping my main fabric. So the next step is you just open it up. Make sure that the direction of your fabric is the way you want it, because that's pretty much going to be your cuff on this side. Your fabric's going to be here. And then you kind of just roll your main fabric. Just keep rolling. So I'm rolling my main body towards my trim. Okay, and give yourself like a finger, an inch, just in between on the main fabric, so that when you lift this over, okay, I see my pinned edge right here. You're just going to take it all, flip it over, and gently put that pinned edge on your raw edge. See, and then if you back it out just a little bit, all of your fabric is down here. And then all you do is take your pin out, and what you're going to do is just insert it the right way, the way you normally are going to match your edges. So, match your edges, remove your pin, kind of like to go from the center out, matching my edges, making sure that there's no fabric that's caught in there. And one on the end. Everything should be lined up now. And my last one. Kind of like to pick it up and just kind of make sure that your main body of the fabric is inside. So I have my cuff, I have my main fabric, I have my folded over trim, and I have my cuff facing in. I'm going to match these all up with the help of my little friend here. And I am going to sew. The edges are already flush, so I'm just going to take a back stitch all the way down. I like to peek inside and make sure that I'm catching all of my fabric. So my main fabric is kind of gone askew here, so I'm going to kind of line it back up. So you just reach inside and grab your main fabric, that roll that you rolled up. You know, maybe hold on to your trim and your cuff at this end, and you're just gently pulling it out. Comes out really easy. Now I'm having to just kind of pull my cuff, pull my main fabric. And now you have your cuff, your trim, and everything is in the direction that you want it to go. So guess what we're going to do next? Look at this, so clever. So I've pressed my cuff and trimmed down once. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to spray starch it with Mary Ellen's Best Press just to give it a nice crisp edge. So now what I've done is I've made sure, I've gone down here to my trim, made sure that my trim is matching, make sure that my edges match, and I even put a pin in this other direction so that when I start sewing, I know that I'm really flush. If you sew 1/8 of an inch, then it's a little easier to enclose on the next step. Let me show you. So I think it's really important to get this as straight, as flush as possible. So I have my 1/8 inch seam all the way around, and now what I'm going to do is turn it inside out so that I can enclose that seam. And you're going to want to press it really, really well. So if you have any kind of tool to press that corner out, let me get that in just a second. Rotate it around. And you want to make sure that your edges are straight and square. So you're always going to be working from your cuff in. And we're going to press once and then we're going to spray starch it. Take your time with this step because I think it's really, really important that you try and get your seam as flat as you can. Maybe even take your fingers, roll those edges, make sure that you get that seam just as much on the edge as you possibly can. Use your fingernails to kind of really just work that fabric. I think that's what's really working best, is just kind of rolling it. So I have right sides together. You can see my 1/8 inch seam right there. So I'm going to put a pin right here. I want this as square as possible. I'm going to take a 1/4 inch seam this time, so I know that that is enclosed. So a couple stitches, back stitch it, and then I can use my guide for a 1/4 inch, because then I know that it's enclosed and that it's going to be fabulous. Be a little careful on your seam that goes over the trim. Take your time with that. Just up and over. Work your fabric. Make sure that it rolls just right how you want it inside the French seam. There you go. But this is just such a really neat pattern. Your trims are lined up, your seams are all enclosed, no raw seams. It's just a really neat pillowcase. And there you have the finished directional pillowcase. Love it!